The ceramic coffee mug hit Elena Romano's stomach with enough force to make her gasp. Hot liquid, not scalding, but hot enough soaked through her white blouse, spreading across the small bump she'd been trying to hide under loose fabric. 6 months pregnant, and she'd just been marked. She stood there in the center of Café Collette, one hand instinctively moving to protect her belly, the other still holding her order pad. The cafe went silent except for the hiss of the espresso machine and the cruel laughter of the woman who'd thrown the mug. "Oops," Vanessa Chen said, her voice dripping with mock concern. She was maybe 30, dressed in a cream Chanel suit that probably cost more than Elena made in 3 months. Her companion, another woman in designer everything, had her phone out, recording. "Guess you should have been faster." Elena didn't cry. Not yet. She'd worked at Café Collette for 4 years, through morning sickness that had her running to the bathroom between orders, through swollen feet that made every shift agony, through the exhaustion that came with growing a human being while serving entitled customers their overpriced lattes. She knew how to handle difficult people, but this was different. "Ma'am, I apologize if you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you." Elena's voice came out steady despite the coffee dripping down her legs, pooling in her shoes. If... Vanessa stood, towering over Elena in her stilettos. "You took 20 minutes to bring our order. 20 minutes. Do you know who we are? Do you know how much we tip?" Her friend, Madison Foster, laughed from behind her phone. "This is going to get so many views. Slow pregnant waitress gets what she deserves." The words hit harder than the mug had. Elena's hand tightened on her stomach. She could feel the baby moving, oblivious to the humiliation happening around them. Her daughter. The ultrasound had confirmed it 2 weeks ago. A little girl who would grow up in a world where people like Vanessa Chen thought cruelty was content. "I'll get you fresh coffees," Elena said quietly. "On the house." "We don't want fresh coffees." Vanessa stepped closer, and Elena could smell her perfume, expensive, overwhelming. "We want competent service. Something you clearly can't provide in your condition." She said condition like it was a disease. From the corner booth, an elderly man named Thomas Wu lowered his newspaper. He'd been coming to Café Collette every morning for 3 years. Elena knew he took his espresso with 1 sugar, no milk. She knew his late wife had loved lemon scones. She knew he tipped exactly 22% every time, because that had been their lucky number. "Excuse me," Thomas called out, his voice shaking with age and anger. "That's completely unacceptable. You can't—" "Mind your business, Grandpa," Madison snapped, still filming. "This is between us and the help." The help. Elena felt something crack inside her. Not break, she wouldn't give them that satisfaction, but crack. A hairline, fracture in the professional mask she'd worn for years. "I'll clean this up," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She turned toward the back, toward the safety of the kitchen, toward anywhere that wasn't here. "Yeah, you do that," Vanessa called after her. "And maybe consider a different line of work, one where you don't have to be on your feet, though I can't imagine what that would be for someone like you." The laughter followed Elena through the cafe, not just from Vanessa and Madison, though theirs was the loudest but nervous, uncomfortable laughter from other customers who didn't know whether to intervene or look away. Most chose to look away. Thomas Wu didn't look away. He pulled out his phone and started typing. In the kitchen, Elena made it to the sink before her hands started shaking. The coffee had cooled enough that it wouldn't burn, but her blouse was ruined. Her shoes were ruined. Her dignity felt ruined. "Elena." Marco, the head barista, rushed over. He was 23. Art school dropout, worked mornings to pay for his studio apartment. "Are you okay? Did they hurt the baby?" "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. "It's just coffee." "It's assault," Marco said, his face red with fury. "I'm calling the cops. I'm calling—" "Don't." Elena grabbed his arm. "Please. I need this job. If we make a scene, if we cause trouble for customers." She didn't finish the sentence. They both knew what happened to servers who made trouble. Café Collette was independently owned, small, struggling to compete with the Starbucks 3 blocks down. The owner, Madame Colette Beaumont, was in her 70s and barely keeping the place afloat. She couldn't afford to lose customers, even terrible ones. "They can't just throw things at you," Marco insisted, "especially when you're pregnant." "Elena," This is serious. I know. Elena looked down at her coffee-stained uniform. She kept a spare in her locker, had learned that lesson years ago, but changing meant going to the tiny bathroom, meant seeing herself in the mirror, meant facing what had just happened. She could hear Vanessa and Madison still laughing in the dining area. Could hear Madison saying something about viral content and restaurant fail. They were going to post it. The video of her standing there with coffee soaking through her clothes, her pregnant belly exposed, her humiliation captured in high definition for the world to see. Elena pulled out her phone from her apron pocket. 3 missed calls from her husband. He always called during his lunch break, wanted to make sure she was eating enough, resting enough, taking care of herself and their daughter. Nico Romano, the man who'd swept her off her feet 5 years ago at a gallery opening she'd been catering, the man who owned a successful import business that she'd learned not to ask too many questions about, the man who'd made her promise to tell him immediately if anyone ever made her feel unsafe. She stared at his contact. Photo Nico laughing, his dark eyes crinkled with genuine joy, taken last month when they'd found out they were having a girl. Her thumb hovered over the call button. Then she put the phone away. Nico was dealing with some business issue downtown. Something about a shipment delay, suppliers who weren't honoring contracts. He'd been tense all week, shoulders tight with stress he tried to hide. She wouldn't add to that. Wouldn't make him worry about her when he had so much else on his mind. Besides, what would she even say? 2 women threw coffee at me? It sounded so small when said out loud. So trivial compared to the actual moment. The actual humiliation. Elena changed into her spare uniform, cleaned the coffee off her shoes as best she could, and returned to the floor. Vanessa and Madison were gone. They'd left without paying, of course they had, and the table was a mess. Coffee cups knocked over deliberately, sugar packets torn open and scattered, napkins wadded up and thrown, on the floor. And in the center of the table, written in spilled cream, "Learn to serve." Thomas Wu was still there. He stood as Elena approached with her cleaning supplies. "I got their faces on video," he said quietly. "Clear shots. And I got their license plate when they left. Black Mercedes, parked illegally in the loading zone." Elena felt tears threaten for the first time. This elderly man, this stranger who owed her nothing, had thought to document what happened. "Thank you, Mr. Wu. But I don't think, I already sent it to my daughter," he interrupted. "She works in digital media. She knows how to make things visible." He said it with such certainty, such quiet conviction, that Elena almost believed something would come of it. "That's very kind, but these things usually just blow over." Thomas Wu smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "My daughter is very persistent, and she hates bullies." He left his usual tip, carefully calculated 22%, and walked out into the San Francisco afternoon. Elena didn't know it yet, but Thomas Wu's daughter, Jennifer Wu, was a social media strategist with 200,000 followers and a very specific specialty, exposing the wealthy and entitled when they forgot how to be human. She'd have the video edited, contextualized, and posted within 2 hours. It would have 50,000 views by dinner time. By midnight, when Elena finally got home and collapsed onto her couch, it would have 800,000. And by tomorrow morning, when Vanessa Chen and Madison Foster woke up to their phones exploding with notifications, it would have 3 million. But Elena didn't know any of that yet. She just knew that her feet hurt. Her uniform smelled like coffee despite washing it twice, and she had to be back at work in 12 hours. She let herself into the apartment she shared with Nico, a modest 2-bedroom in North Beach. Modest compared to what Nico could probably afford. But he'd insisted on keeping their life simple, separate from his business dealings. The apartment was dark. Nico was still out. Elena made it to the bedroom, peeled off her uniform for the second time that day, and stood in front of the full-length mirror. The coffee had left a faint stain on her skin, a reddish mark across her stomach where the ceramic had hit. Not a bruise, not quite, but evidence nonetheless. She ran her hand over her belly, feeling her daughter shift and settle. The baby had been active all day, perhaps sensing her mother's distress. "I'm sorry," Elena whispered to her bump. "I'm sorry you had to be there for that." The door opened. Nico's footsteps in the hallway, familiar and steady. "Tesoro?" His voice carried from the living room. "I brought dinner. That pasta you've been craving from..." He appeared in the bedroom doorway and stopped. His eyes went to her stomach first, to the red mark that was already fading but still visible. Then to her face, to the exhaustion and humiliation she hadn't quite managed to hide. Nico Romano was not a large man, 5'10", lean build, the kind of person who could blend into a crowd when he wanted to. But the way he moved into the room, the way his entire body shifted into something harder, something dangerous, that was when you remembered what he was. "Who touched you?" His voice was very quiet. Too quiet. "Nico, it's nothing, just a difficult customer. Elena." He crossed to her, hands gentle on her shoulders, eyes locked on the mark. "Who touched you?" And that's when she broke. That's when the tears she'd been holding back all day finally came. She told him everything, the coffee, the laughter, the phone recording, her humiliation, the words that had cut deeper than the heat of the liquid. Nico listened without interrupting. His jaw tightened with each detail. But he didn't speak. He just held her, one hand protective over her stomach, over their daughter. When she finished, he was very still. "Their names," he said finally. "Nico, please, it's over. I just want to forget. Their names, Tesoro." Elena knew that tone. She'd heard it before, always directed at other people, never at her. It was the voice of a man who built his empire on loyalty and consequences. "Vanessa Chen and Madison Foster," she whispered. "But Nico, you can't. Whatever you're thinking, I'm not thinking anything." He kissed her forehead, so gentle it made her cry harder. "I'm just going to make sure they understand that some people aren't as defenseless as they look." He guided her to the bed, made sure she was comfortable, brought her water and the pasta he'd picked up. "Rest," he said. "Take tomorrow off. Call Madame Beaumont and tell her you're not feeling well. I can't afford to miss work." "You can." His smile was soft, but his eyes were steel. "Trust me." After she fell asleep, Nico walked into his home office and made 3 phone calls. The first was to his consigliere, Marco Vitale, not the barista, a different Marco. This one had worked with Nico for 15 years, managing the legitimate and less legitimate aspects of Romano family business. "I need information on 2 women," Nico said, his voice clinical now. All emotion locked away. "Vanessa Chen and Madison Foster. Everything. Where they work, where they live, who they know, what they own, where they're vulnerable. When do you need it?" "An hour ago." The second call was to his brother, Luca, who ran the family's real estate holdings, Café Collette on Columbus Avenue. "Buy it." Luca didn't ask questions. "The owner's been trying to sell for months. I can have papers drawn up by morning. What do you want to do with it?" "Keep it running exactly as is. Same staff, same menu, same everything. But I want ownership transferred to Elena's name. She doesn't know yet." "Done." The third call was to someone Nico didn't like calling, Vincent Calabrese, a man who specialized in making problems disappear not violently, not illegally, but through the patient application of pressure to exactly the right points. "I need 2 people to understand what happens when they hurt someone I love," Nico said. "No broken bones, no threats, nothing that traces back. Just education." Vincent's smile was audible through the phone. "I excel at education. Send me the details." By midnight, Nico had a complete dossier on Vanessa Chen and Madison Foster. Vanessa, 31, lifestyle influencer, 500,000 Instagram followers, income derived from brand partnerships and her father's money. Father was Richard Chen, owner of Chen Digital Media Group, a marketing empire worth $200 million. Madison, 29, worked in brand consulting, which seemed to mean she helped other rich people spend money. Trust fund, kid, family money from hotels, never actually had to work but did it for the aesthetic. Both lived in expensive apartments in Pacific Heights. Both drove cars that cost more than most people made in 2 years. Both had carefully curated online personas as self-made women and lifestyle gurus. And, tomorrow, both would wake up to their lives beginning to unravel. Nico looked at the photograph Marco had pulled from Madison's Instagram, the one taken today, posted just hours ago. Elena's face was visible in the background, shocked and humiliated, while Madison smirked at the camera. The caption read, "When the service is slower than a snail, number server problems, number first world problems, number that caffeine life." It had 15,000 likes. Nico's hand tightened on his phone. Then, with deliberate calm, he set it down and walked back to the bedroom where Elena slept. He stood in the doorway watching her, his wife, his life, the mother of his child, and made a promise to the daughter growing inside her. Your mother stood there with grace when cruel people tried to break her. Now I'll show you what happens when grace is backed by power. I'll show those women that there are consequences for cruelty. And I'll make sure that by the time you're born, the world is a little bit safer for people like your mother. Not through violence. Not through anything that would make Elena ashamed, but through the systematic, patient, utterly thorough dismantling of everything Vanessa Chen and Madison Foster thought made them untouchable. The war had begun. They just didn't know it yet. Jennifer Wu posted the video at 6:47 p.m. with a caption that would change everything. Influencer at Vanessa Chen official and her friend throw coffee at pregnant waitress because their order took too long. Then they mock her on camera and leave without paying. This is Café Collette in San Francisco. The waitress's name is Elena. She's 6 months pregnant and has worked there for 4 years. Let's make sure the world knows what real cruelty looks like. Number justice for Elena, number pregnant waitress, number influencer behavior. The video was damning. Jennifer had edited it perfectly. Thomas Wu's footage from his corner booth showed everything. The coffee mug flying through the air, Elena's protective hand on her stomach, Vanessa's smirking face. Madison's phone recording the whole thing, the cruel laughter, the help comment. All of it. By 8 p.m., the video had been shared by 3 major social justice accounts. By 9 p.m., it was trending on Twitter under number coffee mug assault. By 10 p.m., news outlets were reaching out to Jennifer for the full footage. And by midnight, when Vanessa Chen finally checked her phone after a dinner party in Nob Hill, she had 4,000 new notifications. Most of them were not friendly. What the fuck? She sat up in bed, scrolling through comment after comment. You're disgusting. Imagine being so privileged you think assaulting a pregnant woman is funny. I hope you lose everything. Someone find out where she works. Let's make sure her sponsors know what kind of person they're supporting. Vanessa's heart started racing. She clicked on the video Jennifer Wu had posted, watched herself throw the mug, heard her own voice saying those words, saw Elena's face, saw the baby bump, saw everything through the lens of a stranger's camera instead of her own carefully curated worldview. It looked bad. Really bad. She called Madison immediately. Have you seen Twitter? Vanessa's voice was shrill with panic. I'm looking at it now. Madison sounded scared. Vanessa, people are tagging my company. They're calling my boss. Someone found my parents' hotel chain and they're threatening to boycott. It's not that serious. It'll blow over. But Vanessa's hands were shaking. It's just social media. These things always blow over. They didn't blow over. By morning, Vanessa had lost 3 brand partnerships. Companies that had paid her thousands of dollars a month to post photos with their products gone. Emails that were polite but final. We no longer feel you represent our brand values. Madison woke up to a call from her boss at Sterling Brand Consulting. We're putting you on administrative leave, he said without preamble. Pending investigation. Investigation? It was just, you assaulted a pregnant woman and posted about it like it was funny. Our clients are asking questions. We need distance. By 9 a.m., Wednesday morning, both women were experiencing something they'd never really felt before, consequences, but they had no idea how much worse it was about to get. Marco Vitale sat in his office in the financial district, reviewing the intelligence his team had compiled overnight. 12 analysts working through the night, pulling every thread on Vanessa Chen and Madison Foster's lives. The results were interesting. Vanessa's income relied almost entirely on social media partnerships and her father's money. Richard Chen gave her $15,000 a month as an allowance to maintain her lifestyle, while she built her brand. Her apartment of $4,500, month 1 bedroom in Pacific Heights was in her name, but her father co-signed the lease and covered most of the rent. Her car, a white Range Rover, was leased through her father's company. Her entire existence was leveraged on her father's wealth and her social media presence, both of which were now vulnerable. Madison's situation was similar. Trust fund covering 60% of her expenses, salary from Sterling Brand, consulting covering the rest. Her apartment was owned by her family's hotel corporation. Her lifestyle was expensive, $8,000 a month in shopping, dining, and experiences that she posted about online. She had $12,000 in her personal checking account, no significant savings, no assets that weren't tied to her family's money. If the trust fund stopped or the job ended, She'd be broke within 2 months. Marco picked up his phone and called Nico. I have the full picture. They're both financially fragile, dependent on family money and employment that's suddenly very unstable. Good. Nico's voice was calm. Too calm. What about the father? Richard Chen? Chen, Digital Media Group. They handle marketing for about 80 companies, mostly tech startups and mid-size e-commerce brands. Revenue around $200 million annually. Richard built it from scratch in the 90 seconds. Vulnerabilities? Marco smiled. Their biggest client is Prometheus Tech, a software company about to go public. Prometheus represents 30% of Chen's annual revenue. If Prometheus pulls their account, Chen Digital Media loses millions and has to lay off staff. Who runs Prometheus? CEO is David Park, Stanford grad, ambitious, very concerned about public image ahead of their IPO. Get me a meeting with Park. Today. Already scheduled for 2 p.m. Nico hung up and walked to the window of his own office. A modest space above a legitimate import business he actually ran, separate from the family's other interests. Below, San Francisco's streets buzzed with morning traffic. Somewhere out there, Vanessa and Madison were probably just starting to panic. They'd learn what real panic felt like soon enough. His phone rang. Luca, Café Collette, paperwork is done. Madame Beaumont was thrilled. I offered her 20% above asking price and a provision that she can stay on as consultant for a year if she wants. She cried. And Elena doesn't know? She has no idea the cafe she works at is now hers. The transfer goes through Friday. I've set up an LLC in her name. Very clean, very legal. Nico felt some of the tension in his chest ease. At least that part was secure. Whatever happened with Vanessa and Madison, Elena would have the cafe. She'd have security, ownership, something that couldn't be taken away. Thank you, Fratello. Nico. Luca's voice carried a warning. How far are you planning to take this? As far as necessary. Elena wouldn't want. Elena? Nico interrupted quietly. Stood there with coffee soaking through her clothes while 2 strangers mocked her for carrying our child. She protected our daughter with her body while they laughed. She came home with a mark on her stomach where that mug hit. Silence on the line. So I'm going to make sure those women understand exactly what they did. And I'm going to make sure they never have the power to do it to anyone else. Just be careful. You have a family now. A daughter coming. I know. That's why I'm doing this. After they hung up, Nico checked his other phone, the encrypted one. Vincent Calabrese had sent a message. Phase 1 complete. Chen Digital Media just lost their second largest client. Tech startup called to cancel this morning. Cited values misalignment. They're spooked by the video. Nico typed back. Continue. Richard Chen's Wednesday was turning into a nightmare. First, the viral video of his daughter assaulting a pregnant woman, then the social media storm, then the calls from concerned clients asking if Chen Digital Media shared Vanessa's values. He'd spent the morning doing damage control, issuing statements, distancing the company from his daughter's personal behavior. Then at 10:30 a.m., Helix Software called to cancel their $2 million annual contract. It's nothing personal, their CMO said, sounding genuinely apologetic. But our users are very progressive. They're seeing your daughter's video and making connections to your company. We can't afford that association right now. By noon, 2 more clients had called concerned meetings. Richard sat in his corner office, looking at projections that now showed a potential $8 million loss if this continued. $8 million because his idiot daughter couldn't treat service workers with basic human decency. He called Vanessa. Do you understand what you've done? He didn't yell. He was too angry to yell. 3 clients have contacted me today. 3, because of your little stunt. Daddy, I didn't think. No, you didn't think. You never do. He pinched the bridge of his nose. I'm cutting your allowance, and you're going to apologize, publicly. But, now, Vanessa, you're going to post an apology video today, and it's going to be sincere, or I swear to God I will cut you off completely. He hung up before she could argue. What Richard didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that his company's troubles had only just begun. That the concerned clients weren't just reacting to social media. That someone was making quiet phone calls, pulling strings, applying pressure to exactly the right points. That someone was Nico Romano, and he was just getting started. At 2 p.m., Nico walked into Prometheus Tech's headquarters in Soma. David Park met him in a glass-walled conference room with a view of the bay. Mr. Romano. Park shook his hand, clearly uncertain why a meeting had been requested. Your office said you wanted to discuss a business opportunity? I do. Nico sat, calm and professional. I understand you're working with Chen Digital Media for your IPO marketing campaign. Park's expression shifted slightly. We are. Though, given recent events, we're reconsidering. Recent events, Nico repeated. You mean Richard Chen's daughter assaulting a pregnant woman? It's not a good look ahead of going public. Our investors are asking questions. I can imagine. Nico pulled out his tablet, brought up a presentation. I represent a consortium of investors interested in Prometheus. We've been watching your growth with interest. Park leaned forward. Investors always got people's attention. Our consortium manages about $500 million in tech sector investments. We're particularly interested in ethical companies' businesses that align with our values around social responsibility and treatment of workers. That's definitely aligned with our mission, Park said carefully. Good. Nico smiled. Then you'll understand why we'd be concerned about your association with Chen Digital Media. Richard Chen's daughter's behavior suggests a company culture problem, and culture flows from leadership. I'm not sure that's fair. Richard raised her. He funds her lifestyle. He's publicly defended her in the past when she's faced criticism. Nico had done his homework. There's a pattern of entitlement enabled by Chen's wealth. That reflects on his judgment. His company's judgment. Park was quiet, thinking. Our consortium is prepared to invest $50 million in Prometheus's Series C round. But we have conditions. Nico met Park's eyes. One of those conditions is that you work with marketing firms that reflect your stated values. Chen Digital Media doesn't qualify. The number hung in the air. $50 million. You want us to drop Chen? Park said slowly. I want you to make the ethical choice. The fact that it also opens the door for our investment is just convenient. Park stared at the projection numbers on Nico's tablet. $50 million would put them in a much stronger position for their IPO. Would let them expand faster, grab more market share, enter new territories. I'll need to discuss with our board. Of course. Nico stood, extending his hand. Take your time. We're patient investors. But his smile said they both knew how this would end. By 5 p.m., Prometheus Tech had scheduled an emergency board meeting for Thursday morning. By Friday, they would drop Chen Digital Media, and Richard Chen would lose 30% of his annual revenue in a single week. That evening, Vanessa posted her apology video. She sat in her apartment, makeup carefully done to look natural, lighting perfect, every word scripted by a crisis management consultant her father had hired. I want to sincerely apologize for my behavior at Café Collette, she began, her voice shaking just enough to seem genuine. What I did was wrong. I was having a bad day. But that's no excuse for taking it out on someone who is just doing their job. Elena, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry. I hope you can forgive me. It got 200,000 views in the first hour. The comments were not kind. This is so fake. You're only apologizing because you got caught. Notice she doesn't mention the pregnant part? She assaulted a pregnant woman and can't even say it. Too little, too late. Madison posted a similar video. Similar response. By Thursday morning, both women had lost more than half their social media followers. Vanessa's remaining brand partnerships down to 2 were reviewing their options. Madison was still on administrative leave, and rumors were circulating that Sterling Brand Consulting was looking for reasons to terminate her. But they still had their apartments, their cars, their family money. That was about to change. Nico sat across from Elena Thursday evening, watching her eat the soup he'd made badly, but with love. She'd taken 2 days off work. Doctor's orders after stress had caused some cramping. The baby was fine, but Elena needed rest. Have you seen the video? She asked quietly. The one that's going viral? I've seen it. Everyone's calling them monsters, saying horrible things. Elena set down her spoon. Nico, I feel weird about it. Like, they did something terrible, but now they're being destroyed. And part of me is glad, and part of me feels guilty for being glad. Nico took her hand. You're allowed to feel however you feel, Tesoro. They hurt you. They hurt our daughter. If there are consequences, that's justice, not revenge. But where does it stop? When do the consequences become too much? He was quiet for a moment. When they've learned the lesson. When they understand that cruelty has a cost. And you think they've learned? Nico thought about Richard Chen's company hemorrhaging clients. About Vanessa and Madison's carefully constructed lives beginning to crack. About the next phase of his plan, the one that would really hurt. Not yet, he said softly. But they will. Friday morning, Prometheus Tech announced they were ending their relationship with Chen Digital Media. The press release was professional, citing strategic differences and a desire to work with partners who align with our core values. Richard Chen read it 3 times, his hands shaking. 30% of his revenue, gone. He immediately called an emergency staff meeting. Cuts would have to be made, projects canceled, people laid off. His company could survive this, but it would be painful. Years of growth potentially erased because his daughter threw a coffee mug. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Chen, my name is Marco Vitale. I represent some investors who are interested in purchasing Chen Digital Media. Richard's stomach dropped. We're not for sale. Everything's for sale at the right price. And given your recent difficulties, I think you'll find our offer very reasonable. I'm not interested. Think about it. You've just lost your biggest client. 2 others are, rumored to be reviewing their contracts. Your company's reputation is damaged. We can offer you a clean exit with enough money to retire comfortably. Who do you work for? Does it matter? The offer is real. 24 hours, Mr. Chen. After that, the price drops. The line went dead. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Richard sat in his office, looking out at the city he'd conquered, and felt the walls closing in. Someone was orchestrating this. Someone with resources, connections, patience. He thought about the viral video, about the pregnant waitress his daughter had attacked. He thought about the fact that he didn't even know her last name. He should have asked, should have cared, should have done something when he first saw that video instead of just focusing on his company's image. Now it was too late. The consequences were coming whether he was ready or not. Vanessa Chen's world collapsed on Saturday morning. She woke up to an email from her landlord, or rather, her father's company, which owned the building. The subject line made her stomach drop. Notice of lease termination. Due to recent circumstances affecting the building's reputation and tenant relations, we are exercising our right to terminate your lease effective 30 days from this notice. Please make arrangements for alternative housing. Her father was evicting her. She called him immediately. It went to voicemail. She called again, and again. Finally, a text came through. We need to talk. Come to the house. Now, the Chen family estate in Pacific Heights was a monument to success. A Victorian mansion worth $15 million, with views of the Golden Gate Bridge and the bay. Vanessa had grown up here, surrounded by luxury, never wanting for anything. She pulled up in her Range Rover, hands shaking on the wheel. Her father met her in his study. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 5 days. Daddy, what's happening? Why are you evicting me? Richard Chen didn't look up from his desk. Prometheus was just the beginning. I've lost 4 more clients this week. 4. Do you understand what that means? But I apologized. I did the video. Your apology meant nothing. His voice cracked. You think a 2-minute video erases what you did? What you showed the world about who you are? Vanessa felt tears coming. It was a mistake. I was having a bad day. It wasn't a mistake. Mistakes are accidents. What you did was deliberate cruelty. He finally looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Disappointment. Not anger. Disappointment. You humiliated a pregnant woman for entertainment. You mocked her. You filmed it. And I defended you. I've always defended you. So why are you punishing me now? Because someone else is punishing me, and I can't stop them. Richard's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Someone is systematically destroying my company. Someone who knows exactly where to apply pressure. And I think I know it's connected to what you did. Vanessa went cold. What do you mean? I got an offer yesterday to buy Chen Digital Media. For a fraction of what it's worth. The man who called knew things. Vanessa. He knew which clients were considering leaving before they announced it. He knew about financial vulnerabilities I haven't made public. Someone with serious resources is orchestrating this. But it's just a waitress. She's nobody. She's somebody to someone. Richard stood, slamming his hands on the desk. Don't you get it? You didn't just attack a random woman. You attacked someone's wife, someone's unborn child. And whoever that someone is, they have the power to dismantle everything I've built. The study door opened. Richard's lawyer, James Morrison, walked in looking grim. Richard, we need to talk about the Vitali offer. I'm not selling. You might not have a choice. 3 more clients called this morning. They're all canceling by end of month. That's 55% of your annual revenue gone. You'll have to lay off 40% of your staff, just to stay solvent. Vanessa felt the room spinning. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. Who is he? Richard asked. This Vitali. Who does he work for? Morrison hesitated. We've tried to trace it. Shell companies, offshore accounts. But there are rumors, connections to certain families in the city. Old money, real power. The Romanos? Richard's voice was barely audible. Morrison's silence was answer enough. Vanessa's legs went weak. She sat down hard in one of her father's leather chairs. The Romanos. She'd heard the name before, always spoken carefully. A family that had been in San Francisco for generations, that owned half the waterfront, that had connections to everything from legitimate businesses to other things. The waitress. Elena. What's her last name? Vanessa whispered. The waitress. What's her last name? Richard pulled up the viral video on his computer, scrolling through comments until he found one that included a news article. Elena Romano. Romano. Oh my God, Vanessa breathed. Daddy, what do we do? Richard looked at her with eyes that had already seen the future. I'm selling the company, taking the deal before it gets worse. And you, he pulled a folder from his desk drawer. Your allowance is done. Your car lease is terminated. Your apartment, you have 30 days to find somewhere else. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Figure it out. You're 31 years old. Maybe it's time you learned what the real world feels like. You can't do this. I can. And I have to. His voice softened slightly. Vanessa, I enabled this. I let you think actions didn't have consequences because I always protected you. But I can't protect you from this. And maybe... He looked out the window at the city. Maybe you need to fall. Really fall. So you can understand what you did to that woman. Madison Foster's reckoning came from a different angle. Monday morning, she arrived at Sterling Brand Consulting to find security waiting at the entrance. Miss Foster, I need you to come with me. They escorted her to HR. Her boss, Kenneth Sterling, sat beside the HR director, both with expressions of professional regret that didn't quite hide their relief. Madison, we're terminating your employment effective immediately. What? You said administrative leave? We've completed our investigation. Your actions at Café Collette violated our code of conduct. More importantly, they've damaged our reputation with clients. Kenneth slid a folder across the table. 3 clients have specifically asked that you not work on their accounts. We can't employ someone our clients refuse to work with. This is because of a video? Because of one mistake? It's because of character, Madison. We hired you believing you represented our values. This incident shows we were wrong. She wanted to argue, to fight, but the security guard standing by the door made it clear this wasn't a day-dare discussion. They gave her 15 minutes to clean out her desk. As she packed her things into a cardboard box, the most cliché moment of her life, her phone rang. Her mother. Madison, we need to talk about your trust fund. Her stomach dropped. Mom, what's happening? The board met this morning. Given recent events, they've decided to restructure your access. You'll receive a reduced monthly allowance instead of the full distribution. How reduced? $2,000 a month. Madison's rent alone was $3,800. Mom, I can't live on that. I can't. Then perhaps you should have thought about that before you assaulted a pregnant woman. Her mother's voice was ice. The Foster name means something. Madison, you've dragged it through the mud. There are consequences. Everyone kept saying that word. Consequences. Madison walked out of Sterling Brand Consulting, carrying her entire professional life in a box. With $2,000 a month and no job prospects, she'd been making $120,000 a bay. A year. Had a lifestyle that cost twice that when you included the trust fund. She got into her car, a leased BMW that she suddenly realized she couldn't afford, and just sat there, trying to understand how her life had imploded so completely in 7 days. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Miss Foster, this is Marco Vitali. I represent certain parties interested in purchasing your family's hotel properties. Given recent difficulties, we're prepared to make a very generous offer. Your mother has my contact information. Madison stared at the message. They were coming for her family's business now, just like they'd gone after Vanessa's father. Someone was systematically destroying everyone connected to what happened at Café Collette, and Madison finally understood that this wasn't about social media backlash or temporary consequences. This was about real power, the kind that didn't need to be loud to be devastating. Elena, in return to work on Monday, doctor's clearance in hand and a determination to reclaim her normal life. She walked into Café Collette expecting. She didn't know what. Sympathy? Awkwardness? The weight of everyone knowing what had happened? Instead, Madame Beaumont was waiting with tears in her eyes. Elena, ma chérie, come here. The elderly French woman pulled her into a hug that smelled like lavender and espresso. I have news. Wonderful news. Madame Beaumont pulled back, holding Elena's hands. I've sold the cafe. Elena's heart sank. Oh, I understand. After everything that happened, non, you don't understand. I sold it to you. What? Your husband. He arranged everything. The cafe is yours now, Elena. The building, the business, everything. You own it. Elena couldn't process the words. I can't afford to buy a cafe. It's already done. All the papers are signed. Your husband, he is very thorough. Madame Beaumont smiled. I will stay for 1 year as consultant, help you learn the business side, but this is yours now. No more working for someone else. No more worrying about being fired or mistreated. You are the owner. Elena stood in the middle of the cafe she'd worked at for 4 years, the place where she'd been humiliated just days ago, and felt the world tilt. Nico had bought her a cafe. Her phone rang. Speaking of her husband. Did you know about this? She asked instead of, hello? Surprise? His voice carried warmth and a hint of nervousness. Are you angry? I don't know what I am. Nico, you can't just buy me a business without telling me. I can when I want to make sure you never have to worry about someone treating you the way those women did. You love that place, Elena. Now it's yours. No one can take it from you. She walked to the window, looking out at Columbus Avenue, her cafe, her business. What else have you done? She asked quietly, silence on the line. Nico, what else have you done to them? What they deserved. That's not an answer. He was quiet for a long moment. Richard Chen is selling his company. Vanessa has been cut off from family money. Madison lost her job. They're both learning what it feels like to be powerless. And you did that. I made sure the people who needed to know what they did knew. The rest happened naturally. Consequences to sorrow. Just consequences. Elena pressed her hand to her belly, feeling their daughter move. Is it over? Almost. What does that mean? It means they need to apologize. Really apologize. Not some scripted video for social media. They need to look you in the eye and understand what they did. I don't want to see them again. I know, but you need to. Not for them, for you, so you can close this chapter. Elena looked around her cafe, and thought about the woman who'd stood here days ago with coffee soaking through her uniform, protecting her baby, too afraid to fight back. She wasn't that woman anymore. When? She asked. Friday, here at the cafe. After closing. Just you, me, and them. Okay. Her voice was steady. Okay. The rest of Monday brought more revelations. Richard Chen accepted the offer for his company. Sold Chen Digital Media for $45 million, a third of its value 2 weeks ago, to a consortium of investors that Marco Vitali represented. The employees would keep their jobs. The clients would be serviced. Richard would walk away with enough money to retire comfortably, but not luxuriously. His empire, built over 25 years, was gone. When he told Vanessa, she cried, real tears this time, not the performed emotion of her apology video. I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm so sorry. I know you are. Now you need to prove it. He handed her an address. Café Collette. Friday at 7 p.m. You and Madison. You're going to apologize to Elena Romano in person. What if she doesn't want to see us? Then you'll apologize to an empty room. But you'll do it. You'll mean it. And maybe you'll start to become someone worth defending again. Madison got the same message from her mother. Same address, same time, same expectation. This is your chance to start making amends, her mother said. The board is watching. Your family is watching. Show us you're more than the person in that video. That night, both women sat in their respective apartments. Vanessa in temporary housing, with a roommate she'd found on Craigslist. Madison in a studio she'd rented with the last of her savings and stared at the address. Café Collette. The place where their careless cruelty had destroyed everything. They would go. They had no choice. But what neither of them knew was that walking into that cafe on Friday evening would change them in ways they couldn't anticipate. Because Elena Romano wasn't the powerless waitress they remembered. She was the owner now, and her husband would be watching. Vincent Calabrese met with Nico Wednesday afternoon at a quiet restaurant in North Beach. It's done, Vincent said, sliding a folder across the table. Chen's company is ours. Well, technically owned by 17 different shell companies that all eventually trace back to entities you control. But effectively, yours. Employee retention? Everyone except senior management keeps their jobs. Better salaries, actually. Chen was paying below market rate. Nico nodded. And the hotel properties? Foster family is ready to sell. They're spooked. 3 of their hotels have had mysterious health code violations, union disputes, and a sudden surge in negative online reviews. All legitimate issues, just amplified. They're losing money and looking for an exit. Purchase price? $40 million for all 3 properties, worth at least $70, but they're desperate. Nico considered this. 3 hotels in prime San Francisco locations. Could be renovated, rebranded, turned into something better. Employed hundreds of people. Buy them, keep the staff, improve conditions. I want those hotels to become examples of how to treat workers properly. Vincent smiled. Poetic justice. Something like that. After Vincent left, Nico's brother Luca joined him. You've acquired a lot of assets in a week, Luca observed. A cafe, a marketing company, 3 hotels. Starting an empire? Protecting one, Nico corrected. Elena, the baby, our family. I'm making sure we have leverage, options, security, and teaching a lesson. That too. Luca was quiet for a moment. She's going to figure out how far you went eventually. Elena's not stupid. I know. And I'll deal with that when it happens. Right now, I'm making sure those women understand what they did. Making sure they never have the power to do it again. You've taken everything from them. Not everything. Nico's eyes were cold. They still have their lives, their health, their futures if they choose to build something better. I just took away the unearned privilege that let them think cruelty was entertainment. Luca studied his brother. You really love her. Elena, more than anything, her and our daughter. Nico's expression softened. She stood there protecting our child while strangers mocked her. What kind of man would I be if I let that go unanswered? A normal one. Then I'm glad I'm not normal. Thursday evening, Elena closed the cafe early and sat in the empty space, running her hands over the tables she'd served for 4 years. Her cafe now. The thought still didn't feel real. Nico found her there at 6 p.m., sitting in the corner booth where Thomas Wu usually read his newspaper. Nervous about tomorrow? He asked, sliding in beside her. Terrified, she admitted. What am I supposed to say to them? What are they supposed to say to me? Whatever's true. He took her hand. You don't have to. Forgive them, Tesoro. You don't have to make them feel better. You just have to hear them acknowledge what they did. And then what? Everything goes back to normal? No, nothing goes back to how it was. His thumb traced circles on her palm. But maybe everything moves forward, better than before. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling their daughter kick against her ribs. Did you really buy a marketing company and 3 hotels? You heard about that? Marco talks. The barista Marco. Not your Marco. She smiled slightly. He says there are rumors that someone powerful has been buying up businesses all week. That Vanessa's father lost everything. Nico was quiet. I should be angry, Elena said. I should tell you that you went too far. that revenge isn't the answer. But I'm 6 months pregnant, and I still have a mark on my stomach from where that mug hit. And when I close my eyes, I still see their faces. The way they laughed. Her voice cracked. So I'm not angry. I'm just relieved that someone fought for me, that someone made them see me as real. You were always real, Nico said fiercely. They just couldn't see past their own cruelty. They sat in the quiet cafe, holding each other, while outside the city hummed with evening traffic. Tomorrow would bring confrontation, apologies, the kind of reckoning that changed people. But tonight, they had this, peace in the space Elena now owned, protected by a man who loved her enough to dismantle empires. Friday was coming, and with it, the final chapter of a story that began with cruelty and would end with understanding, or at least, with consequences fully delivered. Friday arrived cold and gray, typical San Francisco autumn. Elena woke before dawn, her daughter's movements restless, as if sensing her mother's anxiety. Nico was already up, sitting in the kitchen with espresso and his encrypted phone. He looked up when she entered. Couldn't sleep either? Elena asked. Too much on my mind. He set the phone down. How are you feeling? Like I'm about to face the people who humiliated me in front of the world. She poured herself decaf coffee, one of many pregnancy sacrifices. So, terrified and angry, and ready to get it over with. You don't have to do this. I can handle it alone. No. Elena's voice was firm. I need to be there. I need to see their faces when they apologize. I need to know if they actually understand what they did, or if this is just more performance. Nico stood, crossing to her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Whatever happens tonight, you're safe. I'll be right there. I know. She leaned into him. That's the only reason I can do this. They spent the day in careful routine. Elena worked the morning shift at the cafe. Her cafe, still getting used to that while Nico handled business calls and coordinated with Marco Vitale on final details. By 5 p.m., the cafe was empty. Marco, the barista, had cleaned and closed early per Elena's request. The tables were set, the espresso machine gleaming, everything perfect and waiting. Elena changed into a simple dress, navy blue, professional. Nothing that would make her look vulnerable. She wanted them to see her as she was now. The owner, the woman who'd survived their cruelty and come out stronger. At 6:45 p.m., Nico arrived with Marco Vitale and Vincent Calabrese. Both men positioned themselves near the back, present but not intrusive. Insurance, Nico had called them. Elena called them intimidating, which was probably the point. At 7 p.m., exactly, the cafe door opened. Vanessa Chen walked in first, and Elena barely recognized her. Gone was the designer suit and perfect makeup. Vanessa wore jeans and a plain sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No jewelry except small earrings. She looked younger without all the armor of wealth, and more importantly, she looked scared. Madison Foster followed, similarly stripped of her usual polished appearance. Dark. Circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't slept much either. Both women stopped when they saw Elena standing behind the counter, the same counter where they'd ordered their coffee just 2 weeks ago. Their faces went pale. Miss Chen. Miss Foster. Nico's voice cut through the silence. Thank you for coming. Please, sit. He gestured to a table in the center of the cafe. Not Elena's choice of location, she'd have preferred they stand. Feel uncomfortable, but Nico had insisted. Let them sit, he'd said. Makes them feel like they're back in that moment. Helps them understand. Vanessa and Madison sat. Elena noticed their hands were shaking. Nico stood beside Elena, his presence solid and protective. Marco and Vincent remained in the background, silent witnesses. You asked for this meeting? Elena said, her voice steadier than she felt. So talk. Vanessa looked at Madison, then back at Elena. When she spoke, her voice cracked immediately. I don't know where to start. I'm sorry. Feels so inadequate for what we did. Tears were already streaming down her face, real ones, not performed. Elena, we hurt you. We humiliated you. We threw coffee at you while you were pregnant, and we laughed about it. We treated you like you weren't human. Why? The question came out harsh. Elena hadn't planned to speak much, but she needed to know. Why did you do it? What did I do to deserve that? Nothing, Madison whispered. You did nothing. That's what makes it so much worse. Vanessa was crying harder now, struggling to speak. I was having a bad day. My engagement had just fallen apart. I was stressed about my brand losing followers. And you were there. And you were pregnant and glowing. And you seemed so content just being a waitress. And I. She stopped, shaking her head. I was cruel because I was jealous. Because your life seemed simpler than mine. Because I could be. You were cruel because you thought I was powerless, Elena corrected quietly. Because I served you coffee, you thought I was beneath you, that I didn't matter. Yes. Vanessa didn't try to deny it. Yes. And I was wrong. So completely wrong. Madison finally found her voice. I filmed it. I made sure to capture your face, your humiliation. I posted it online like it was funny. She was crying too now. Elena, I can't take that back. I can't erase what I did to you. But I need you to know that I see you now. I see what we did. Do you? Elena's hand moved to her stomach, to the place where the mug had hit. Because 2 weeks ago, you called me the help. You said I should find a different line of work. You mocked me for being pregnant, for being slow, for existing in your space. I know. Vanessa's voice broke completely. I know what we said, what we did, and I've lost everything because of it. My father's company is gone. My apartment, my car, my income, everything. My entire life collapsed because of 15 minutes of cruelty. Good, Elena said simply. The word hung in the air. Vanessa looked up, startled. Madison's eyes went wide. You think that's harsh? Elena's voice gained strength. You humiliated me in front of a room full of people. You filmed it and put it online for millions to see. You marked my body. She pulled down the neckline of her dress slightly, showing the faint bruise that still remained. You could have hurt my daughter. And you did all of that for fun, for content. She took a step toward their table. Nico moved with her, a shadow at her shoulder. So yes, I'm glad you lost your privileges. I'm glad you learned what it feels like to be powerless, because that's what you did to me. You made me powerless in a space where I'd worked for 4 years, where I'd built relationships, where I felt safe. You took that from me for entertainment. We're sorry, Vanessa sobbed. We're so sorry. What can we do? How can we make this right? You can't. Elena's voice was final. There's no making this right. There's just living with what you did and trying to be better people. Madison wiped her eyes. Your husband. She glanced at Nico, fear evident. He destroyed everything we had. Everything. He protected me, Elena corrected. The way you should have been raised to protect people weaker than you. The way decent people behave. He just made sure you understood that cruelty has consequences. We understand, Vanessa said desperately. We do. Please, we've lost everything. Our careers, our money, our reputations. Isn't that enough? Elena looked at these two women who'd looked so powerful 2 weeks ago, so untouchable in their designer clothes and casual cruelty. Now they looked small, broken, human. She felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, she wasn't ready for that. Might never be ready, but something else. Understanding, maybe, or just exhaustion with the weight of carrying all this anger. I accept your apology, Elena said finally. Not because you've suffered enough, not because I forgive what you did, but because I'm choosing not to carry this anymore. I'm choosing to move forward. She turned to Nico. Can we be done now? He nodded, his hand finding hers. We're done. But before they could leave, Vanessa spoke again. Wait, please. She stood, her movements careful, respectful. I need to say one more thing. Elena paused. I've been seeing a therapist this week, court-ordered, part of the assault charge that was filed. Vanessa's voice was steadier now. She asked me to imagine what it felt like for you, standing there with coffee soaking through your clothes, everyone staring, your baby in your belly and you trying to protect her. She asked me to really imagine it. Vanessa's hand moved to her own stomach unconsciously. I don't have children. I don't know what that fear feels like, but I tried to imagine it. And it made me physically sick, Elena. The thought of being that vulnerable, that exposed, that helpless while people laughed. She took a shaking breath. You showed more strength in those 5 minutes than I've shown in my entire life. You didn't scream or cry or fight back. You just stood there with dignity and finished your shift. I could never do that. I would have fallen apart. Maybe you should have fallen apart sooner, Elena said quietly, before it took losing everything to learn empathy. You're right. You're absolutely right. Vanessa looked at Madison. We both should have. Madison stood as well. We've set up a fund. Whatever money we have left from selling our things, my car, my jewelry, her designer clothes, we're donating it to a charity that supports pregnant women in service industry jobs, women who face harassment and abuse and can't afford to fight back. Elena blinked, surprised. You did that? It's not enough, Madison said quickly. It'll never be enough. But it's something. It's us trying to make meaning from this nightmare, trying to help other people, so maybe something good can come from what we did. Elena felt tears finally coming. The first she'd let herself cry since that night. How much? $37,000, Vanessa said. Everything we could liquidate. It's nothing compared to what we used to have, but it's real money for people who need it. For women like you who work hard and deserve respect and protection. Elena looked at Nico. He nodded slightly, his expression unreadable but not opposed. Okay, Elena said. That's good, thank you. The silence that followed was different. Not comfortable, but no longer hostile. Just heavy with the weight of everything that had happened, everything that had been destroyed and might someday be rebuilt. Can I ask you something? Vanessa's voice was small. Your daughter, is she okay? Did we hurt her? Elena's hand went to her belly. She's fine. Strong, like her mother. I'm glad. Vanessa smiled through tears. I hope she grows up in a world that's kinder than the one we showed you. She will, Nico said, speaking for the first time since the apologies began. His voice was quiet but carried absolute certainty, because I'm going to make sure of it. The promise in those words made both Vanessa and Madison shiver. We should go, Madison said. We've taken enough of your time. They moved toward the door. Two women who'd walked in with designer confidence 2 weeks ago, now leaving humbled and human. At the threshold, Vanessa turned back one last time. Elena? I know I have no right to ask this, but in 5 years, or 10, or however long it takes, if we've actually become better people, if we've done the work and proved we've changed, could there ever be forgiveness? Elena considered the question. Considered the daughter growing inside her, the world she wanted that little girl to inherit. A world where people could learn from their mistakes, where cruelty had consequences but redemption was possible. Ask me in 10 years, she said finally. Show me who you become, then we'll talk. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Vanessa nodded, accepting this. 10 years. I'll remember. They left. The cafe fell silent again. Elena turned to Nico, and the tears she'd been holding back finally came. He gathered her close, one hand protective over their daughter, the other stroking her hair. It's over, he murmured. It's really over, Tesoro. Did we do the right thing? Letting them leave? Not making them suffer more? You did the right thing. You stood there with dignity and showed them grace. Not because they deserved it, but because that's who you are. He kissed her forehead. You're stronger than all of us, Elena. You always have been, Marco Vitali approached respectfully. Boss, the paperwork on Chen Digital Media is finalized. It's officially transferred to your holdings. What do you want me to do with it? Nico considered this. A marketing company worth millions, now under his control. He could sell it, break it, apart, profit from the pieces. Restructure it, he said instead. New management, better working conditions, ethical practices. I want it to become an example of how to run a business that actually values people. And send Richard Chen a job offer consultant position, decent salary. He built something good once. Give him a chance to do it again. Marco nodded and stepped away. Vincent Calabrese was next. The Foster hotels are ours. Plans for renovation? Talk to Elena. Nico looked at his wife. She's going to consult on all of it. The hotels, the cafe expansions, everything. She knows what workers need better than any of us. Elena stared at him. I'm a waitress, Nico. I don't know how to run hotels. You're a business owner who understands how to treat people with dignity. That's more valuable than any MBA. His smile was gentle. Besides, our daughter should grow up seeing her mother build things, create things. Not just survive, but thrive. Elena felt something shift in her chest, the last piece of humiliation from that terrible day, finally releasing its grip. She wasn't just the pregnant waitress who got coffee thrown at her. She was Elena Romano, cafe owner, future mother, woman who'd stood with dignity and come out stronger. "Okay," she said. "Okay, I'll do it." 3 months later, Elena gave birth to Sophia Marie Romano at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, with her mother's dark hair and her father's determined jaw. Nico held his daughter for the first time with tears streaming down his face. This man who dismantled empires without blinking, undone by 7 pounds of perfect humanity. "She's going to be strong," he whispered. "Like her mother." "She's going to be kind," Elena corrected, exhausted but glowing. "That's more important than strong. She'll be both." The cafe reopened a week after Sophia's birth with new management. Marco the barista, promoted and trained, running day-to-day operations while Elena recovered. The menu expanded to include more accessible prices. The staff got raises and better benefits. And above the door, a new sign. Sophia's Cafe, where everyone matters. The viral video still existed online, 3 million views, a permanent record of cruelty and consequences. But now when people searched for it, they found follow-up articles. Former influencers volunteer at women's shelter after viral incident. Chen digital media restructures with focus on ethical practices. Sophia's Cafe becomes model for fair treatment of service workers. The story had changed. Not erased, but evolved. 6 years later, Elena sat in her cafe on a Sunday morning, Sophia coloring at a corner table while tourists and regulars filled the space with warmth and conversation. The door opened. A woman walked in, older now, less polished but more genuine. Vanessa Chen, wearing simple clothes, no designer labels. She'd been working as a social worker for 3 years, helping at-risk youth. Her Instagram followers had dwindled to 3,000, but every post was real, raw, human. She saw Elena and froze. Elena stood slowly, her heart racing. 6 years, not quite the 10. Vanessa had promised to wait, but close enough. "Hi," Vanessa said quietly. "I know I'm early. I know I said 10 years. But I was in the neighborhood, and I thought." She trailed off. "Is this okay? Can I be here?" Elena studied her, really looked at her. Saw someone different from the cruel woman who'd thrown coffee 6 years ago. Saw someone who'd done the work, paid the price, become better. "What do you want?" Elena asked. "Just coffee. And maybe if you have time to show you pictures of the women's shelter where I work. We use the model from Sophia's Cafe. Fair wages, respect, dignity. It's helped 17 women get back on their feet this year." Elena felt something release in her chest. The last bit of anger she'd been carrying, finally letting go. "Sit down," she said. "Coffee's on the house." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." As Elena prepared the coffee, an actual good cup, made with care, she glanced at Sophia, who was watching with curious 6-year-old eyes. "Mama, who's that lady?" "Someone who made a mistake a long time ago," Elena said, "and spent years learning how to be better." "Did she learn?" Elena looked at Vanessa, sitting humbly at the table where she'd once been so cruel. "Yeah, baby. I think she did." She brought the coffee over, sat down across from Vanessa, and for the first time in 6 years, they talked. Not as victim and perpetrator, not as powerless and powerful, just as two women who'd both learned hard lessons about grace, consequences, and the possibility of redemption. Nico arrived an hour later with their second child, Marco, 3 years old, named after the barista who'd stood up for Elena when she needed it most. He took in the scene his wife, the woman who'd once hurt her, the peaceful conversation, and understood. His Elena had won completely, not just through his power and protection, but through her own strength, through choosing when to fight and when to let go, through building something better from the ashes of cruelty. That night, after the cafe closed and the children were asleep, Nico and Elena stood on their apartment balcony watching the city lights. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Everything you did to them?" "No. They needed to learn. The world needed to see that actions have consequences." He pulled her close. "But I'm glad you chose grace in the end. That's the difference between us, Tesoro. I would have kept them down forever. You gave them a chance to rise again. We balance each other." "We do." He kissed her temple. "Power and grace. Consequences and mercy. That's how we'll teach our children. That's the world we'll build for them. Elena leaned into her husband, the man who'd bought her a cafe, dismantled empires, and protected her with unwavering ferocity, and felt complete peace. They'd started with cruelty, ended with understanding, and in between, taught a whole city that everyone has someone who would burn the world down for them. But more importantly, they'd shown that sometimes the strongest people are the ones who choose not to burn it, who choose instead to rebuild it better. Elena Romano had been powerless once, then protected, then strong, and finally, gracious. And that made her the most powerful person in the story. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.